They're soaked.
No, we're glad to see it. We're not making much trash. I mean, there's hardly ever
Yeah, I
anything
can
in it.
imagine what they would.
Yeah.
So.
Glad we can help.
Yeah, they had carrots this time, more broccoli. Blush. Excuse me.
All right, we'll go ahead and call to order the meeting. Go ahead and start with prayer. Stand if you can. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us to gather today. Just help guide us in the decisions we make, and that not all decisions will be perfect, but it is with you and also the community in mind when we make such decisions. And also that we live in a country that allows our citizens to interact with both local and state and also federal government and to have their voices heard. Amen. We'll go ahead and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And then the Texas pledge.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Well, I appreciate everyone coming in today, especially with the rain. Unfortunately, you have to have me. The mayor is out today, so but I appreciate you guys showing up. Moving on to,
Mayor,
I'm
Mayor
sorry,
Pro Tem,
we need to go ahead and do
we need
roll
to do a
call.
roll call.
Already out. All right. Go ahead, we're gonna do a roll call.
Okay, James Wansley, Zach Briscoe,
Here.
Ginger Cardwell.
Here.
Paul Hickey,
Here.
Michael Lowe, and Dick Jackson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. Any presentations?
No, sir.
Moving into community interest.
Mayor Pro Tem and Council, White House High School graduation will be May 28th. The farmers market plans to continue every Saturday right out here at City Hall. I think they're gonna try and make it all the way through November, so, ambitious goals, and, the first 2 weekends that they have had it have been a great success, so, we're expecting more produce as the summer kind of heats up, and so that's been exciting to see. We're gonna host another small business seminar tomorrow on writing content for social media and websites for small businesses. It's also National Police Week, so if you get a chance, be sure and thank our police officers. And then, as most of you I think have already heard, Mr. Ray Terry passed away over the weekend.
I hate to hear that. I know he was a staple in this community.
Yeah, he was a, yep, good guy too.
Anyone have anything else? Moving on to public forum, do we have anyone sign in for public forum?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then we'll move on to consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next item is other action items. Number 1, discuss and consider resolution R21-0511-01, accepting grant fund from the Texas Forestry Service.
Mayor Pro Tem and Council, I will turn it over to Chief Johnson.
Mayor Pro Tem and Council, City Manager Black cautioned me and let me know I had 1 minute. No, I'm tickled about this grant. This is a grant from the Texas Forestry Service that I actually have put in for all 8 years. And we finally hit one of the grants for PPE, or our bunker gear. So we've been awarded a 90-10 contribution for $12,000 to go towards new bunker gear. And that's gonna be roughly 5 sets. So the good news about that, it comes at a good time because we have some old gear that's starting to expire. We have to rotate it every 10 years. So this is gonna rotate it. So I think it's gonna have a potential positive impact on our capital improvement outlay. It kind of change some things up. So I think it's gonna give us a little breathing room there. So this resolution is merely a formality. I don't know that they're gonna actually ask for it, but as soon as we start the documentation process, we'll have it in hand and we can move forward on our purchase.
Outstanding.
Yep,
Great
good
job.
news.
And for those out there, it doesn't say it up here, but that's a very competitive grant.
It is a very
And
competitive.
so for us to be able to get a little piece is outstanding. I applaud both chiefs and also city staff and how they are constantly looking for avenues of alternate funding. The amount of grants, and I'd love to one day maybe get a figure. It's impressive how much grant money you guys go out and seek and get awarded, which can be very difficult, especially some of these last couple of years with budget shortfalls and so forth. So thank you for that. Well, I think we need to, does anyone need any discussion on that resolution as it's presented? There's no further discussion. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution R21-51-01, accepting grant fund from the Texas Forestry Service.
Second.
Do we need to, with it being a resolution, will a voice or roll?
A voice is fine.
Voice, okay. All right. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None? All right. Sounds great. Thank you, Chief, again. Next item, COVID-19 update.
Mayor, Pro Tem, and Council, not much new on this front. We continue to see declining case counts. The American Rescue Plan, or ARPA, the Treasury did release their interim final guidance report this week, yesterday, and have begun distributing those funds or making those funds available for distribution to entitlement cities. We are a non-entitlement city due to our population, so we will have to wait for our distribution to come through, most likely Tatum, in the next 30 to 60 days. So we're anxiously awaiting their guidance on how they will do that and what that process will look like. We're in the process of combing through the 151 pages of that guidance to figure out what we can and cannot use those funds for. I did also see that some major retail pharmacies are making COVID-19 vaccines available on a walk-in basis. And I did hear that the Department of State Health Services will no longer be allocating vaccines. Providers are able to request those vaccines in numbers that they need. So I think we're seeing supply starting to outweigh demand when it comes to COVID-19 vaccines. So good progress there, and I did see that last night WISD has now made masks optional for all campuses.
Okay. Well, thank you for that update.
Thank you.
Any questions on COVID-19? If not, we'll move on to item 3, 2021-2022 budget discussions.
Mayor and Council, there's several things in your packet. Most notably, you will see the detailed budget report for the utility fund in your packet. I won't go through that line item by line item. We'll hit the high points tonight. As you know, this kind of kicks off what will be a 3-month process to nail down our city budget and tax rate for the upcoming fiscal year. So we'll walk through this pretty quickly. The line item detail report that you have in your packet is really just a preliminary starting point. We still have many re-rates and information that we have not yet received. Most notably, those would include our employee health insurance, retirement, and any water rate changes from the city of Tyler. Jennifer did reach out to the city of Tyler and asked if they were going to be proposing any rate changes, and they indicated that at this time they do not plan to propose a so that was good news. One of the things, as I just mentioned, the American Rescue Plan, that's gonna have a big impact on both our general fund and utility fund budget and projects over the next several years. But as of today, Jennifer reached out to the city's accounting firm to figure out what that treatment would look like, because it could impact both of these funds significantly, and I think the plan of action will be to create and utilize a separate fund for that money, so that it's a little bit easier to track the revenue and expenses related to that, and for auditing purposes, it'll make that a little cleaner. So you shouldn't see it impact the utility fund or the general fund as we move forward, but you will see a new fund that will work to get created. As we did last year, kind of my direction to the department heads when they were developing their departmental budgets was to take a look at what they had budgeted this year and tell me what they need to maintain current operations. So this first pass does not include anything over and above what we've done for the past year. There's one exception to that. We do need to rebuild I'm not gonna say it right, a sludge press pump for the wastewater treatment plant. That's about $8,000. The other exception to this would be, we have added half of a salary for a public works director. Our current public works director has indicated he will be retiring sometime within the next year, so that gives us a little bit of leeway and flexibility when we need to make those hiring decisions and look for a replacement. Staff is also recommending leaving the utility rates at current levels. We think any infrastructure improvements that we need to do, we're hopeful that we can fund those through the American Rescue Plan and kind of give our citizens another year at the same rates. So that's what's kind of built into here. When you look at utility fund revenues, we did increase the charges for current services slightly. We had not increased that amount, at least since in last fiscal year, and we've had several new homes and businesses come online, so we did a very conservative estimate on the amount of accounts that we expect to realize the revenue increase for that. But other than that, most other revenue remains the same, and currently we've received approximately 60% of budgeted revenues for the current fiscal year, which is right on track, maybe even a little ahead of where we would expect to be at this point in the year. On expenses, again, budgeted expenditures show a 5% increase due to those anticipated staffing changes. We don't expect that we will have 6 months of overlap with those two individuals, but we went ahead and threw it in there just to make sure we were being on the conservative side and estimating appropriately. Most other expenditures remain flat or just only slightly different from prior years. So bottom line, for the current fiscal year, we had budgeted for revenues to exceed expenditures about $3,600. I know y'all laugh at me every time when I say the budget's tight. It's really tight for this proposed year at about $647 in revenues over expenditures. Again, that's gonna change when we get new rate information from retirement, health insurance, all of those things that go into here that we just don't have the information for yet. But I wanted you to see where we stand right now. One other thing that is not in here that will be part of our capital improvement plan discussion, we do need to repaint the inside of one of our water storage tanks. That's cost about $100,000. But again, we'll look at kind of those things as a whole and see maybe what other funding opportunities we will have for those.
And that was listed on our CIP also, wasn't it?
Yes, it is in the CIP plan, so, but I think it's better to kind of look at those projects holistically and see what all of our needs are. I realize that's probably the only one that will come out of the utility fund. But again, we'll take a look at all of those together at a future meeting and kind of rank and figure out what the priorities are. Any questions specifically on the utility fund before I move on to property taxes?
No questions from me.
Earlier this month, The city received its preliminary values from the Smith County Appraisal District, but we wanted to kind of go back and take a look at current year property taxes. And this is just a breakdown of the taxing entities that a citizen in the city of White House would pay taxes to. So for every dollar paid in property taxes by a White House resident in the current year, 53 cents went to White House ISD, 33 cents to the city of White House, and 14 cents to Smith County. This slide kind of highlights the Senate Bill 2 changes that were enacted in 2019. As you all know and are aware, the voter approval rate went from an 8% to a 3.5% increase in revenues for cities with certain populations, but it does provide exceptions for small cities, including White House, to use what is called the de minimis rate. There were some changes to what we call truth in taxation, which is the process that we go through to adopt, publish, and collect our property taxes. There is a current bill in the legislature right now that would clean up some of the things that were flawed in the last bill. Cities that use sales tax to reduce property tax, which we do, it throws our rates off when we have to make our publications, so it looks like we are collecting more than what is allowed, and that's simply not the case because it didn't provide for that reduction for the sales tax to reduce property taxes. So it's a convoluted 8-page formula that we won't go into the whole thing. So this is what we received from Smith County Appraisal District. This is great news. Our preliminary net taxable value went up approximately 10% over the prior year. We expect that that will be reduced, as always, as we go through the protest process. And so we've included about a 5% reduction this year. It only went down about 3.5% from the preliminary to the adjusted last year. But I think, as Mayor Pro Tem Hickey and I discussed, some people may have been preoccupied with COVID, and we may have seen fewer protests last year than what we may anticipate this year. So we've gone ahead and budgeted that at a 5% reduction. The average home value increased about 4% to $182,000. And the number I'm most excited about is the new construction value at $23 million, which is a 132% increase over the amount of new construction in the prior year. That's a great, big, happy number. Also included on here is the sales tax to reduce property tax that I mentioned a while ago. We have to use very specific quarters to make that calculation, and we haven't completed those quarters, so I've left that blank. So when we start talking about the preliminary rates in a few slides, just keep in mind those rates don't take into account the sales tax to reduce property tax. So again, it's just all very preliminary right now. As we get more information through the process, we'll further refine that. And then the adjusted levy for no new revenue, that's basically your adjusted taxable value minus your new construction. When you calculate your no new revenue rate, they allow you to accept your new construction so that it doesn't necessarily limit your revenue, and you're able to capitalize on the revenue from the new construction differently than existing. Included in your packet, I've kind of gone through some of the information that went into effect from Senate Bill 2 and some very simplistic tax rate calculations. Again, it's taking about 8 pages and turning it into about 3, so it's certainly not comprehensive, but it's one of the easier ways to explain it. So the no new revenue rate is the rate that you would charge to generate the same amount of revenue as the prior year. So in 2020, our M&O property tax revenue was just over $1.3 million divided by the net taxable value, which would equate to a no new revenue rate of just over 32 cents. The voter approval rate, which in this case does not apply to the city of White House because of our population, would be your no new revenue rate with a 3.5% increase. So you can see that calculation on your screen, plus your debt service rate. Our debt service rate is something that we haven't talked about tonight, but as you know, is the rate that is required to be charged to meet the debt obligations of the city for the upcoming fiscal year. For this upcoming fiscal year, right now, it's estimated at just over 44 cents, for a total voter approval rate of just over 77 cents per $100 of value. The former rollback rate calculation, which was the 8%, you can see that calculation on your screen. The total for that would be about just over 79 cents. And then the de minimis rate calculation. So for cities with small populations, including the city of White House, it's the no new revenue M&O rate plus the rate that would impose $500,000 of property taxes when applied to the city's current total value plus the debt service rate, for a total de minimis rate of just over 87 cents. And this is the same kind of rate calculation sheet that we used last year. And you'll see that we have the no new revenue rate, the voter approved rate, the de minimis rate, the formal rollback rate, and then maintaining the overall rate, as well as some additional rates below that yellow line. The yellow maintained overall rate would keep the same overall rate as we had in the prior year. You would see that that would result in a general fund revenue increase of M&O taxes of about $191,000. And that is a result of an M&O change of just over 2 cents. It's an increase on the M&O side. What we've done, as you all know, is made a concerted effort to reduce the amount of debt outstanding and reduce the amount of our debt tax rate. And so as we do that, it gives us more room on the operations side to carry out some activities that we desperately need. So as we move forward, again, we'll kind of further refine these rates. But I have a little bit more information on property tax rates. These are the 2020 tax rates and would be the total tax bill for individuals living in each of these cities. Out of the 8 cities in Smith County, we are right in the middle at 4th or 5th from the lowest tax rate. So you can see that Art, Overton, and Troop all have higher tax rates than us, and then Bullard, Glendale, Tyler, and Winona are a little bit lower. I calculated the average earlier today, and the average tax bill for someone inside a city in Smith County is $4,300, $4,311.05, and the city of White House total tax bill is $4,373.27, or a $63 difference from the average. Again, when it comes to debt, this chart shows the rates of Smith County cities. The dark blue is the debt rate, the light blue is the operations rate. And again, I think I mentioned to you last year when I saw this chart, I was like, oh, that's why we feel kind of the strain on the operations side and not being able to carry out maybe as many projects as we would like to do. But I think this also speaks to a positive in our community that a lot of these other communities can't speak to, and that's the condition of our infrastructure. I would argue that the city of White House's infrastructure is years, if not decades, ahead of some of these other cities, both in our capacity and our condition. I think this speaks to the progressiveness and the willingness for the city to take care of its infrastructure and prepare for the growth that we're seeing in those new construction numbers. This just takes a look at our benchmark cities that we've identified that may be outside of Smith County as well. Again, I think you see that dark blue line is probably a little longer than some of these other cities. But since 2018, the city of White House has reduced our overall debt load by over $7 million. And I think this chart speaks to how we plan to continue that. We understand that, to operate, we have to issue debt, just like a home. Sometimes to operate a home, you have to have a mortgage. So to take care of some of these bigger expenditures, it's just required, but we have been working very hard to get that debt rate reduced over the last several years. Any questions on tax rates?
No, and
I appreciate the detailed report.
Yeah, that's perfect.
This-
That's great.
And for those that are out that, you know, one of the questions comes up, where can we get this information? It's available on our website, even under city council meetings. You can look at the agenda, which will have all this attached, for you to be able to review on your own. So,
And then here's a preliminary schedule going forward, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. These are tentative dates. In the next month, I'm gonna be going to Austin to hear a legislative update from TML, and they'll start pushing out, better calendars and guidelines on each of these deadlines. You know, it has to be the 14th day before the 10th day that you publish it, and it gets, kinda hairy there in July and August, so we'll make sure we keep refining these dates and cleaning them up a little bit. Probably at the next meeting, we will review the general fund, and on June 8th, probably tax rates again, and CIP and any program enhancements or new programs that the departments would like to implement. June 22nd, we'll take a look again at all funds. The other important date is that we expect to receive certified rolls from Smith County on July 25th. And then we will begin our budget public hearings and tax rate public hearings with the goal to adopt either the last meeting in August or the first meeting in September. That's all I have on that.
all right. Well, thank you. Okay. Any other questions over budget? All right, moving on to H4, consider future agenda items. Anyone have anything that they'd like for entry onto the next council meeting?
Not this time.
Okay. All right, that moves us to I, which we do not have listed any activities needing executive session, which then brings us down to J and K. Being that we end this meeting at 6:26. We are adjourned. Thank you.